One of the things which bothers me most about T4 Siege is that people often don't think about the importance of their utility, operator picks, or as a whole understand how to take the map. Obviously, I'm far from perfect, but I want to talk about an example of a take which requires practically no skill, and the only way it goes wrong is if you can't control the other team's aggression or you can't control your own. Now, that might sound a little cryptic, so what does that exactly mean? Kids Bunk on Oregon is a staple map in the comp pool currently, and even though it has some talk about getting removed, it's generally well liked and one of the most defaulted maps. As a result, we've seen most of that there is to see for defensive strategy at this point, and therefore the attackers generally have a pretty good idea of what they're up against in a given Kids Bunks round. So, how do we abuse this information? When you look at the site itself, you notice a lot of potential nice plan options inside the games room. You also notice that Trophy, Master, Closet, and Armory are all relatively hard to contest without sacrificing something else. I know Trophy Armory holds a big popularity, but you'll have to trust me that they're practically a non-issue when it comes to this take. Like in any siege round, you want to separate your attacks into stages. So the first stage is to get your map control. But what does this actually look like? Well, looking at the master side of the map, you can cut off rotations in and out of Armory using the game's repel, and you can also make use of the satellite window to contest any head holes into Armory or any rotations from the main hall into Trophy. This limits the space of those in Armory and the Trophy players. This leaves 3 players, which is actually the perfect amount for what comes next. We have a set of nades go Armory window to take control of Armory to eventually apply pressure into Trophy if there is a Trophy shield, and if there's an Armory player, he should have no trouble clearing that out with his grenades. But once an Armory player gets his footing, the Trophy player practically has to leave. At which point, we can talk about the other 2 operators on the Master Balcony. The ace on Master Balcony are responsible for droning the other player into Master and making sure it's clear so they can secure the space for Trophy if there is someone contesting it. Once the space is secured by nades and the Master Balc player, Ace can now get ready to open the wall. Thatcher on Games Repel is going to make use of the CMP right here to help Ace get the wall open. And Ace is going to open a rotate in the right side Games wall and head holes on the left side. The additional benefit of Thatcher on this window repel is you can deny impact tricks from inside of games. Now that the wall is open, we can move on to phase 2 of this attack, getting attic control. Thatcher and Cappy Tower are going to rotate Big Tower now and set up a flank drone for T1 to prevent their flanks. With these 2 leaving, we no longer have control of games itself or bottom main stairs, so we need to have flank drones to replace them. Now, you could also play gun up on these angles, but I believe that's a waste of utility. Being we have to wait for Capital and Thatcher attic side anyways, I believe it is best to rotate the player Master Balk to a big window where they can be additional sight pressure while they wait. Ace should be on the Master Balk flipping cameras while Sledge sits Armory Hall playing relatively passive. Now, let's talk about how we take attic. One reason why a lot of teams shy away from this type of take is that it's very easy to mess up your control if you bank everything on 3 flashes and a nade, which is why we won't do that. Instead, use Capital's hard breach gadget to open up the wall so there's a head height angle on the left side, and open a crouch rotate on the right side. Next, have Ace get off flank drones to throw the Trophy Selma while Sledge holds the drones. Obviously, this Trophy Selma is weak to white stairs, but those head holes on the game's wall should restrict the white player's movement, and if your second time attacking and you want to guarantee the wall gets open, then you can have your big window player start kids instead, and it should do about the same. This Selma for Pit, combined with the mostly default head holes for the Armory Hall, will make the Pit player have 1 playable position left, which is by the pit door. Then the next phase is now just for the execute. From here, it's more so a question of what we see on the map. If we see there are players below and we don't want to risk contesting the hatch, we have Capital rotate Kid's window and hold white with his fire and smokes, and have Thatcher double with Ace to kill the pit player while Sledge holds from breach. At which point, Ace plants on concrete while Thatcher covers the flanks. And if we see that there's no one in meaning, then it becomes a question of if we want to go for a beer plant or go for kills deep inside of kids. Regardless of what you opt for, these plants can go down on a 5v5 if the defense is extremely passive. Now, theory isn't always perfect, neither is this one. In each phase, there are a few nitpicky things which you can look for. First is game's window. It's obviously a very jeopardizing position to play in the first place, and there are possible runouts from main door, shower hall, small tower, and white stairs window. Obviously, this is not an ideal position, which is why the attack needs to efficiently drone out Armory and Master and take their space as quickly as possible in order to prevent this. What can also be done as a contingency is on Thatcher, you do have 2 claymores. So if you spawn Junkyard, you can place those down for 2 of the 4 runouts, and alternatively, if you don't want to bring claymores, you can set up flank cams for Z-Hall and split off round start to hold for those potential runouts. The next flaw in phase 1 is obviously Big Tower being a massive threat to satellite window. This is something that can only be planned for with a drone in this phase. Your best bet is to get the drone going T2 and leave it there and occasionally flick to it. This also helps for getting into T2 once you get your master map control. And the final massive flaw is, what do you do if there's a T3 player? Well, the simple answer is you simply take another way. The more complex answer is you don't, and you pair a Capital, a Thatcher on the repels, and the Master Bunk player walks up to you on stairs. If you're really struggling with this guy because it's an Azami or there's some type of hold that you really need to clear in order to get out of control but you think it's going to be easy enough, you can bring Sledge over as well for a nade and give Ace another camera to watch for Trophy Door. Within Phase 2, not a whole lot can go wrong besides losing gunfights versus a guy that should have been free misinformation, or you're over-aggressing. Phase 3 has really two flaws, one of which is Solus takes away most flank drones that Ace will watch, and she simply takes away the potential of a beer plant, a kids plant, and a foosball plant. So what does this actually mean for us? Well, if you want to have more success in Oregon, you can ban Solus. Alternatively, you can have your Master Bunk player be on IQ and fight for below, if you're really that concerned. This is why I left the Master Bunk player pretty ambiguous. Having one operator you can practically always swap to benefit your team is pretty important, and there's no better player for it in this case. The other flaw is the vision for it. If you lose your drones, or you can't make up your mind, then your team will suffer for it. There is no simple solution than that besides just play smart and with your team. Thank you for watching. I hope you gained something from this, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or reach out to me.